Yeah, Kevin. So
Yeah.
in Hong Kong, the education system is mostly English, especially in the university. And even though in the actual social interaction among students, we local people, local students usually use Cantonese as the native communication. And
Hmm.
somehow we all expect to use English in the formal work and even in the graduation. Like we kind of extrapolate the school setting into the workplace, right? We expect the boss, the clients to use English, but the actual communication is most likely Cantonese or whatever local language. So is that really the case? Or how important is the English play a role in the actual job performance or actual workplace?
It's very much depend on the industry itself or the job itself, right? Um, if the job itself or the industry mainly serve the local participants in Hong Kong, I think mainly Cantonese then, maybe some Mandarin, right? Uh, so we're talking about maybe local retail, local, food and beverage, shopping centers and stuff like that. But the angle where I'm coming from is obviously from a international sort of finance angle, banking and finance angle, and I know a lot of people are doing business related degree, and so Hong Kong historically and still is an international finance center. And the reason why it's called international is because we're not just here to service the 7.5 million people living in Hong Kong. We are playing a connection role between the rest of the world and Asia and China. And when we're dealing with the rest of the world, it doesn't really matter where the rest of the world is, as long as it is not speaking a Chinese language, then the default common language has to be in English. Whether you're dealing with Korean, Indian, Pakistani, unless you can speak their local language, it's English. So if where you're working is somewhat international, means not purely local, then I think English plays a much more significant role than people imagine. And the reason is that, let's say you have a meeting, there's 6 people there. As long as one of them doesn't speak Cantonese, you have to do the whole meeting in English. Now, just imagine if you're not proficient with English, either in speaking or listening, or both, how much challenge would it be for you to struggle through the whole meeting? Not just for you, but for the poor guy who doesn't understand Cantonese, right? And you're trying to do business, which means you're trying to, uh, understand the client requirement, try to design a solution, trying to agree on something, right? It's hard enough as it is to design a solution for anything. It's much harder if you don't even have the language to communicate, to begin to find a solution, right? So for those people who aspire to work, not just in the local scene, and has a larger vision of an international presence in terms of what they do, either serving clients or serving companies with international staff, English, in my humble opinion, is so essential to the future of the progression in the company. And I don't mean it lightly. I mean it seriously. And so I'm a prime example of that. I'm born here. I'm a just local Hong Kong guy. Now, I studied abroad when I was 15. I went to Australia, and then I worked in Australia, in London, in Singapore, and I used primarily English in all of these places, right? And during the time that I spent in those places, living there and working there, I assimilate into their culture. I watch their TV. I watch their movies. I laugh at their jokes. I eat their food. What does all that mean? It means that when I come back to Hong Kong and I work in an international company, and when I deal with anyone from, let's say, the Western world, I have more common topics that I can relate to them about. And I would understand what it is. I can actually laugh at their jokes because I know the movies or the TV series they're talking about. I know the name of the actor and actress. And immediately, this feeling of familiarity creates the trust that you're one of them, that we're in it together. And this trust is what is the most profound element of any progression anywhere else. Why would you promote or increase the pay on someone that you don't inherently trust? You won't. You won't have that intimacy. You won't care about those people that you don't trust. Because it's only that you start, okay, well, I like this guy. You like it because you can trust him or her. Okay. And language, I'm saying, if it breaks down the barrier between your cultural differences, which inherently is something you cannot change, okay? Language then is the only thing that you can use to bring people closer together and establish commonalities and bond and trust. So I want to really stress this point because I'm a benefactor of that. And I get to where I did get to, I think, largely because of my proficiency in English and my behavior that demonstrates my experience and my understanding of the Western culture. A combination of that and through time and through my own performance allows me to stand in equal standing with people who are competing for the same slot that may be a Westerner. Okay. I don't look like a Westerner. I'll never be a Westerner. Okay. So by definition, I don't belong to that club per se. Okay. However, because of language, because of how it works to build a relationship with people, and I use it and I practice it enough to be proficient, they can say, hey, you don't have an accent. Where'd you come from? So immediately, it's kind of like you're going travel, right? Let's say you go to Canada and you don't know English very well. And so you get into a train and you see another guy that looks Asian. You don't even know if he's Chinese. Immediately, if you don't know where to go and you want to ask for direction, you approach him first because he looks like someone that you can familiarize with, and it's far more likely that he won't, do something rude to you because you're both Asian. Same thing. But once you can speak the language, that doubt is removed. So people can find you approachable. So out of all the Asians in the whole group, if you're the only one, or relatively the only one, that can actually communicate with them with far more ease, then you are the go-to person for everything. And if you are the go-to person for everything, you're going to be at the vortex of information. You're going to know a lot more than the rest of the guys who are not. And with information comes opportunities. And that's how the whole thing snowballs. So I just want to explain that progression for people who may not see the whole thing, how it plays out. And I'm just telling you my personal experience, how it played out for me.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Kevin. Yeah.